Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm doing a lateral moving and shooting exercise. So the goal is to put 2 shots on each target while continually moving back and forth. Let's start this and you'll see what it looks like. So as you saw in that exercise, going that way, if I'm right-handed, it's easy, right? The problem is when I'm going back the other way, I gotta torque my body in an awkward position. So again, if I'm going, let's say this way, it's easy for me to shoot this way. But if I'm turning around this way and now trying to shoot that way, this becomes really awkward. I almost have to kind of walk backwards. So the easy solution to this, right? If I'm going this way and I need that angle, switch hands, all right? Really easy, you know. You got to practice it, right? You got to practice just first shooting in your left hand while you're stationary. But once you do it, it's not that hard. You can teach your hands to do anything, okay? You know, I've learned to write with both hands. So let's do this. I'm gonna, again, 2 shots on each target. When I come back the other way, I'm gonna switch it to my left hand. Okay. Going back the other way now. I'm switching hands. Right. So again, switch the hands. Going back this way. So, really good drill, very practical. So you basically just have to get used to, you know, you hear as you come around, do the easy switch, okay? So the idea here is that as you're moving, you want to point your hips in the direction that you're moving in, because that's how you normally work. So hips point that way, and then my upper body, I'm able to turn that to the side, and I can actually shoot behind me as I'm moving, right? Now, obviously, I'm bending this elbow, which means that this arm here has to be very firm, because the thing that you got to watch out for here is, because as you're moving forward this way and aiming like this, because this elbow is broken over here, right? If you don't have a firm grip on the gun and you're limp wristing it, the gun's gonna jam up, because these semi-automatic guns are dependent on the bottom of the gun staying steady while the top moves back and forth, okay? So if you hold the gun loosely and the gun starts moving around like this, what's gonna happen is the slide is not gonna come back all the way. You're bleeding off energy. So the slide is only gonna come back like halfway. You're either going to fail to eject or fail to feed the next round, which is why when you switch and as you're moving this way, right, and you're moving backwards like this, your arm has to be firm, right? So one of the great things about this drill and developing this skill, right, because this is a skill that needs to be developed, it gives me the ability to run away from something. If somebody's following me, right, with a knife, or, you know, I can run away and basically put fire in that direction. So I can both be defensive in terms of running away, and also if I need to shoot, I can still shoot. So now this is something that you would use obviously in an isolated situation where it's called for, right? Because here's the thing: if you're shooting stationary, right, if you have a threat that's just like 3 feet in front of you, let's say they got a knife and they're about to stab you, if you just come out of the holster, by the time you go to full extension, right, they're already on you, right? Basically, they're going to close the distance. They're going to get inside of your range, right? They're going to get past your gun. The gun can be pushed to the side, and now the gun is going to be a lot less effective. So you have to maintain distance. So one way to maintain distance is to basically backpedal, right? Shoot and move up backwards. The problem with that is that I don't have eyes on the back of my head. I'm not used to running backwards. So the person pursuing you can run forward faster, a lot faster than you can run backwards. So as you try to backpedal faster and faster while shooting, you're gonna trip and fall, okay? So, however, if you determine that that's a good direction to move in, you switch the gun to this hand. Now with my hips pointing in that direction, I can move forward pretty fast and keep my dot on the target and be able to shoot, right? So, and I can do this either lefty or righty, right? So you want to practice in your offhand, right? The other hand. So if you're righty, you need to practice in your left hand. If you're lefty, you need to practice in your right hand. You need to practice often enough so that other people watching you shoot can't tell whether you're really a righty or a lefty. That's a training goal, right? For other people not to be able to tell if you're truly a lefty or a righty. Now, some people are very right eye dominant, right? Or very left eye dominant. So for a lot of people, for a lot of people, even if they're, let's say their right eye dominant is shooting in their left hand, they will switch over, they'll bring this over to their right side, right? So let's say they're normally righty, guns in their left hand, they're bringing it all the way over here so that they can use their right eye. In my case, I'm omnidominant. So if I'm shooting on this side over here, my right eye takes over. If I'm shooting on this side over here, my left eye takes over. That does give me a bit of an advantage as far as being able to perform this a little bit more comfortably. However, if you're very right eye, and this is not something you need to really worry about too much, your dominant eye is naturally going to take over, okay? So all you gotta do is worry about finding your dot. Now, the other thing that's pretty obvious from this exercise is having optics gives you a significant advantage, okay? If you have an optic, you will have a significant advantage. Now, the one I use the Holosun ACSS, right? I'll give you guys, right? So there it is, right? There it is. So ACSS, you see how you got that arrow? I use that to aim, and then I use the edge of that big circle to help me find the center and get my dot on target. And of course, I've got the backup sights. Now you can see that my chevron is blinking. The blinky means that it's time for me to change the battery. All right, so you do get a warning if the battery starts to go out, but it is also solar powered, okay? Now, I normally keep this in manual mode so that I can for the purpose of the exercise, I can easily adjust this to whatever brightness level I want. If I was carrying it, I would just keep it in solar power mode because that auto adjusts, okay, the brightness. So when I put it in the holster, it dims down to conserve the battery. So this is really the best optic there is. This is the Holosun 507 ACSS, and it's got. Yeah, let me show you guys what I got there. You got that chevron, right? So the chevron itself is like 10 MOA, right? But the tip is very fine, so I could actually use that tip to take a very fine shot, all right? And then if I'm offline, like let's say I come out of holster and I'm offline, right? If I see the edge of that circle like that, I immediately know what direction to move in, okay? So if you bring this close, the way this works, if you bring it close, you see the whole thing, right? But then as you extend out, the outer edge of the circle disappears. So the way this is designed to be used is normally you only see the chevron, right? And you only see the circle if you're offline, and then you use that to kind of bring you back to center to get that chevron on target. It's also pretty useful that the battery's starting to run out on this because you guys can see the blinky. So that's your warning that the battery's basically dying. Normally, if you basically keep the gun in the safe, because if you don't carry the gun, you're gonna get like a pretty long battery life out of this. If you carry the gun, what happens is, basically, when the gun's in the safe, it powers down, right? It senses that the gun's inactive, it powers down. But if you're carrying the gun, obviously you're always moving, so it never really gets a chance to go to sleep, okay? So it's always active. So that's why the solar power mode is very useful for everyday carry, because once it goes into the holster, where it's generally dark in there, it senses the light drop, and then it dims down the reticle to conserve the battery. Like I said, in my case, I keep it in manual mode because I train every day, and I just want it to be, in many cases, I just want it to be nuclear bright. But that's not the way I would normally carry it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, enjoyed this video. I wanted to share this important exercise because a lot of times, like most people, first of all, most people when they go to the range, they only practice like first of all, a lot of people don't even practice drawing from a holster, right? You know, because the range won't allow them, right? So all they practice is just target shooting. Where they're shooting at a target that's whatever, like 5-6 feet in front of them, you know, 10 feet in front of them. That's all most people ever do. So you got to get to a range where you can do holster drills, where you can practice coming out of the holster. And there's a technique that I teach people so that you can safely go in and out of the holster without shooting yourself in the foot or in the hand. That's a big concern with holster drawing, right? You have to be able to safely draw and reholster. And also, you need to be able to add movement, right? Whether it's moving to cover the shoot or shooting on the move. These are important skills that need to be developed, because in real life, you know, I mean, just to give you guys an example, if you're the threat over there, right? Let's say you're about to attack me. If I stay stationary over here, you know exactly where I am, and chances are you can close the distance before I get my gun out of the holster. However, if I just introduce a sidestep, right, all of a sudden I am not where you thought I was going to be, right? If I can change my position from here to here, that's a big advantage, because all your momentum is going here. If I step here, what that's going to force you to do is to stop and think, whoa, whoa, what's this guy doing? Because my goal is just to make a sidestep to get offline, but you don't know if I'm going to keep going in that direction or not. So what it does is it takes back initiative, okay? If I'm able to take back initiative, because here's the thing to understand with a typical self-defense type of situation. Normally, you're on the defense, so you don't have the initiative. Normally, in a self-defense type of situation, we are reacting to somebody else, okay? So they have the initiative. They're a step ahead of us. So an important part of gunfighting, right, because, you know, an important part of gunfighting is to take back initiative. I want to take back the advantage. So one of the things that I teach people is don't let the other person know where you're going to be, right? Because if the fight starts here and I stay here, you know exactly where I am. If I can introduce even a little bit of motion, I'm taking back initiative. I'm also possibly confusing you a little bit, because you don't know if I'm going to stop here or if I'm going to keep going that way. So these are all important tactical things to consider with regards to self-defense. Okay, this is a very small chip off of this piece. You know, there's a lot to self-defense and tactical training and winning gunfights, right? Because this is not about shooting. Okay, you know what we're talking about here is not shooting. The shooting is just a small aspect of what I'm teaching you guys here. This is about fighting, okay? And there's, you know, whether you're fighting with your fists or fighting with a gun, you know, fighting is fighting. You know, fighting with knives, fighting with swords. You know, the common element that you will see there is the fighting part. And there's lots of things that, let's say that people that fight with their hands, right? They're like boxers, and there's lots of elements to what they do that I teach in gun fighting, okay? And this is just one small example as far as, you know, taking initiative and not being predictable, not being where your attacker expects you to be, okay? Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you all soon.